everybody. It's me. So I put it yesterday. I mentioned that I was going to go live today. So so hopefully some of you are going to be able to join me if you saw that in time. If not, you can check in with me if you are replaying this video. So I wanted to continue today the conversation around numerology, how I use numerology in my tarot readings. So I think the way I use it, it creates sort of a structure that I find really helpful. And people have asked me about how I use the numbers. So we did in the last video, we did 1, 2, 3, and also let me know if you're here. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to share those as well. So we did 1, 2, 3 in the last live stream that we did on this topic, and today we're doing 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So yeah, just check in if you're here, and I'll respond as I see you. But otherwise, we'll just get in to the topic of the day. So number 4, hi RV Joey. Okay, so we're starting with 4. So if you think of 4, I always think of 4 as like the 4 legs of a chair or of a table. So 4 is about stabilization, creating a stable anchor point, or actually even a foundation on which you're going to build. So when I look at the 4, whenever I see 4, I think about creating stable foundations, right? So it actually is an action. It's an action step, but it's an integrative action step, if that makes sense. So you are taking action, but it's more like you're internally creating action or creating action for yourself. It's almost like self-care or kind of getting yourself ready for the next step. So it's not in the world as much as it's self-oriented. You're taking care of yourself. Hi, Corey. So we'll look at the minor arcana first. We've got the 4s of swords, pentacles, all these guys. So the 4 of swords, this is the modern witch tarot. So it's a little bit different than the Rider-Waite. The idea is sort of the same, but like the 4 of swords, right? So the stabilization, then swords is the mind of the mind. Now, this actually, the way they've created this art piece, the woman looks like she's distressed, which I would say kind of goes against what I think of it implies something's disturbing about this card, when in the Rider-Waite, it's actually a crypt, which is a funeral crypt, right? So I mean, it may seem kind of bad, but in the tarot, death is often associated with transformation or stabilization. Like the grave is the place where new things begin. So the act of the mind stabilization usually is like a releasing of the old, which is kind of a death of the old. So in the 4 of swords, it's like the mind is getting stabilized. It was kind of anxious. It's been struggling a bit, but now it's sort of finding a new place of stability. And so it's quiet. It's still, like in the crypt in the Rider-Waite. So that's what the 4 of swords would suggest, is the mind is stabilizing. 4 of Pentacles is the physical realm, right? So it's about money and jobs and hobbies, that kind of thing. And this shows a person in control of their pentacles, right? She's wearing one, she's holding one. So the idea here is stabilization of your resources, which means knowing where your resources are, kind of deciding where your resources need to be invested and where they're not going to be invested. So it's before you run into the world willy-nilly offering your gift everywhere, you're going to make sure you understand your gifts, you kind of take account for your gifts, and you treat them with respect. That's the right foundation point and I think that often happens. We skip the 4 point when we go into the world with our gifts, and we sort of throw them out to anyone. And some people don't know how to honor it. We end up getting very tired and burn out because we haven't kind of created a foundational understanding of how we're going to take care of our resources and expend them wisely. So that'd be the foundation for the Pentacles. 4 of Cups is cups are connected to the intuition or the heart. So the 4 of Cups is about kind of creating a foundational relationship with the heart. So the image here is this person kind of away by themselves. Again, this sometimes looks like a grumpy face, and the Rider-Waite, it kind of looks grumpy too. But the idea of, I think it's about like stepping away, learning how to listen to your heart, creating a foundational relationship with your heart so your intuition can get through to you when it needs to. So basically, we need to know how our intuition is talking to us and develop a responsive relationship with it, so that when we're in the world, we have a foundational way of responding and understanding the heart. And that means you have to get away from other voices. It kind of reminds me a little of the hermit. There's a little bit of a hermit in this, the idea of stepping away so you can hear your own voices. But you have to be able to stabilize your relationship with your heart before you go into the world. And 4 of Wands. Wands is about passion and confidence and inspiration. And I often think of the 4 of Wands in the Rider-Waite as a chutzpah, Okay, there's a name. There's a Hebrew name for a marriage canopy. I think I'm saying it wrong. But anyway, the idea that it's sort of connected to a wedding. And this image actually has a couple under these four wands. And the idea is you're stabilizing kind of your passion and your energy through some sort of structural support system. And so that would be, I think of the wands as being an invitation of your community. Your community is hearing you and kind of anchoring your passion in their own joy and their well wishes. So if you think about going to a wedding, you have people who are your family, your friends are there, they're giving you gifts, they're offering their prayers for you, they're cheering you on, and they're there to witness sort of the establishment of how your passion, the structure that's going to hold your passion in the world. So you need sort of a way of kind of grounding your passion in the world. And that can be through like a structure, or it can be through other people. So that's how the four would be in the minor arcana. And we also have two fours showing up in the major arcana. The first one is the Emperor. So I know you guys have heard me talk about the Emperor before, but the Emperor, I think, is the stabilizing energy, because the Emperor is caretaking masculine energy. So the job of the Emperor is to be the father figure, the good father who creates safe structures and provision and a place for children to be safe and to grow up and to play, right? So the Emperor energy, and actually he feels, this is actually a female in this image, but the Emperor energy actually has this very stable the throne is very heavy, right? And very solid. So the idea here is you have a solid masculine energy taking care of you. And this kind of is the invitation, I think, of the mind. The mind in the spirit world, the mind is associated with masculine energy. So it's the mind's job to create good structures that are all about being supportive and protective of you. And so your intuition, which is the feminine energy, gets a chance to play and grow and learn, right? So the idea here is you don't go straight again with your gifts. You don't go straight into the world, right? You have to get strong. You have to have time to grow and get strong, but also time to feel deeply loved and cared for. That even if you go into the world is sort of an unknown place. There's lots of things out there. We're not sure. There's visibility. You're now in the public sphere. You need to have a private space that's very well developed that you always come back to be nurtured and protected, right? So that would be the four element here. You don't run off and create your business before you make sure you have a home base that's deeply provided for and protected by this Emperor energy. You hear that siren? Sorry about that. And the other four in the Rider-Waite is death. So I love the death card, because it kind of reminds me of the Four of Swords, right? The idea of and it also reminds me of the Emperor a bit, because the Emperor is the ruler here, and it's the caretaking, mature masculine energy. The death card is sort of getting rid of tyrants. That's how I think of this card. So the image has the skeleton knight who's coming into town, and this person who had a crown is already on the ground. So the idea is that this skeleton knight is sort of knocked over the old leader, because they don't match, right? Because we're talking about stabilization. We're talking about creating a good foundation a stable foundation on which we can build, which means that we have to get rid of any energies which are giving us rules or laws or structures that don't match us. And that's what death is about. We look at the inner voices, the inner tyrants that we inherited from somewhere. And they're not necessarily tyrants because they're trying to harm us. They're tyrants because they don't match us. So all of my clients, and maybe everybody, but I know specifically my clients are ones that we don't typically match the linear world we were born into. But we are given mindsets and kind of rules and expectations that are a mismatch for how our energy moves in the world. And so at this point this is further in the so this Emperor is the first four we meet in the major arcana. This is the next four. So this is the second half of the major arcana, where some of the subtler, like deeper lessons are being brought, right? This is where we identify the voices that are not supporting us, that are kind of working against us, or kind of creating disharmony or dislocation within us, and we get rid of them so we can step into that role of authority. Actually, probably bringing our own Emperor into the role of true authority, which is the loving, providing. The Emperor's job, a father's job, a good father's job, sole focus is making sure the kids are safe and provided for and happy, right? So we need to have, our minds need to have that as their sole purpose. And their also their purpose is to is to identify and remove any energies that don't match that purpose. So that would be the other 4 in the major arcana. Hi, Necro Nikki. Good to see you too. Those are our 4s. So I don't see any questions about 4s. Feel free to ask if you have any. We'll move on to 5, right? So the 4 is the stabilizing energy. The 5 is the challenge point. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before, where the 5 is the midpoint in the 10 card trajectory. So you start at the 1, you're going to end at the 10, and in the middle is the 5. So the 5 is that midpoint where basically the challenge comes because you have to decide if you're going to finish the work or not, right? And so the challenge is almost like the threshold. You have to gear yourself up to cross before you continue on. And it's there for a reason. Thresholds exist because you need to make sure you're ready for the rest of the journey. And if you can't cross the threshold, then you're not ready. You kind of like a hill. I always talk about like being a hill. You're coming up the hill. At this point, you got to hit the gas to cross over, right? The peak. And then you gain speed coming down. But if you're not really ready, if you're not totally committed for whatever reason, you hit the brakes here and you start sliding back down the mountain. And that's not a problem. The threshold is there to make sure you're ready, right? And so if you're not ready, then you lose momentum, you slide back down. So people tend to be very hard on themselves when they reach a challenge point and they kind of don't meet the challenge because we're thinking linearly, like, oh, well, you should just keep going forward all the time. Not necessarily. I mean, you try and you slide down, you try, I mean, it's like, I talk about having a baby all the time because I had 2 babies. And it feels like everything matches that for me. But the idea of when you're having a baby, there is a push, and then you have to keep engaging the push. It doesn't happen like that. Well, maybe for some people, not for me, but where you have to kind of keep engaging the challenge because you're building up to it. You're building up to it. You're not failing. If you go up the mountain and you slide back down, you didn't fail. You just are gaining energy. You're kind of, every time you gain energy, you get stronger and stronger. You really are building up strength in that challenge point. So the threshold is there. So it gives you a chance to build up your energy because you're going to need that energy on the other side of the challenge, right? If it was easy to pass through, you would come into the world, into that other side of the challenge, unprepared, right? So anyway, that's a lot of talking about the 5. So let's look at the 5 minor arcanas. We got the 5 of Wands. Okay, so as I said before, I feel like I'm backwards I keep turning the card the wrong way. So Wands, I said, are connected to passion, confidence, inspiration. 5 is the challenge point. Here we have 5 people sparring with Wands. And although 5 is connected to conflict and challenge, I think it's also connected to like a rise in commitment, a rise in energy, kind of that the push, right? And so the image here doesn't remind me of people having a conflict. I think of it as them having a sparring match. So if you think about playing tennis with a partner who's maybe a little better than you, or playing, anything you do with someone who's maybe better than you, or at least equal to you. And as you play together, you get better and stronger, and you kind of surface more and more gifts. That's what I think this card is about. It's about moving in the world and engaging the world in such a way that it is pushing you and challenging you and inspiring you to get further and further into your passion. There is sort of an abandon in this. So the challenge here is, are you ready to abandon yourself to your passion? Are you willing to go and let it kind of run through you? And if you're still self-conscious, or you're nervous, or you don't feel ready, then maybe you don't engage this. You kind of pull back, you hang back, and you go back into, your private space a bit more. Or like the 4 of Wands, where you go back to where your people love you and they're just celebrating you. You're not really having to push yet in the 4 of Wands. So, hi, Lisa. Okay, so the 5 of Swords, of course. So Swords is about the mind and mindsets and ideas. The interesting thing about this one is that, let's see how, I didn't really look at this too much, but it looks like the Rider-Waite. The idea of the conflict in the mind, the challenge of the mind, I think, is knowing when not to engage. That actually is the challenge of the mind's challenge throughout its trajectory, is learning how to listen to the intuition and not respond to the influences of others, of the world outside, because your authority has to come in order for your life to really balance and match your spiritual journey. Your mind has to learn how to follow the instructions and the purposes of the intuition. So if the mind's constantly derailed by other people trying to explain itself or defend itself or argue with other people, then it's losing energy and it's losing um, orientation every time. So the Five of Swords shows this person who's like standing on the seashore. There it is. Like really kind of smug and happy, as though they've won many battles, and they're like, "Yeah, I've beaten all these people." And so you might say, "Well, the challenge is to take on this person." I would say the challenge met is these people walking away because they're deciding not to engage in a battle of the mind, which is irrelevant. We don't really want we want the mind more and more, at least the way I work with my clients. We want the mind more and more to engage less in theory and judgment and theory and more in practicalities. We don't want the mind to jump ahead or imagine this or get involved in this philosophy. I mean, philosophies are good, are helpful, and systems of belief are helpful, but only if they very closely match the intention of the intuition. So every mindset, we want the mind to have mindsets that are curated really well, and that its attention is very narrowly focused on whatever the intuition wants to do, right? So like if you're writing a book, right? And your mind's like, but who's going to buy this book? But how are we going to publish it? But the mind is now going into a theoretical realm. You're not at that point yet. That's not a problem, it's something to be solved. We want the mind to stay focused here and actually surfacing the book and writing it down. The mind's in charge of communication. So you need the mind to be engaged in the writing of the book. So this can be upright or it can be reversed. Reverse is sort of like we're trying to keep our mind not to chase its own rabbits. Here, we don't want it to chase other people's rabbits. So the challenge here for the mind is can it stay focused? The challenge point, can it stay focused and not get distracted by other things so that it's ready to go into the rest of the journey? Okay. Hi, Sebastian. Five of Pentacles. Pentacles is physical realm, money, jobs, well-being, physical well-being. This is an image very similar to the Rider-Waite of two people walking through snow. They're not quite as impoverished. Like the Rider-Waite, like they're barefoot and one has a broken leg. I mean, it's very like oppressive, poverty stricken people, right? So this is not quite as impoverished as I would like. But the idea here is that we're hitting a sense of physical impoverishment, whether that's money, whether that's energy, whether that's well-being. And these people are kind of trudging forward. And the challenge here, as I've said many times, is whether they're going to look around them and realize that there is support available to them. And I think the challenge of the Pentacles journey is because it is physical, the idea that because we are physical people on a physical plane, we have a limited capacity to do stuff. Okay. So if you're relying only on your own willpower, determination, grit, then you will not pass this challenge. This challenge is not about can you keep going in the snow? The challenge is, will you see that there is help available and will you take advantage of that help? If you refuse to take advantage of the help around you, you won't be able to finish your work because we are not here to create on our own. We're here to co-create with the universe, and you have to be able to let that universe break in. And so the challenge here, if you keep looking at your feet and keep going forward, you will fail this challenge and you'll end up sliding back down the mountain and until you learn. You've got to learn how to look, expect help, look for help, and accept it when it comes. It's not just a nice thing to do. It's required for you to meet this challenge. And finally, Five of Cups, which is the challenge of the intuition or the heart. The image shows a person looking back at this place, sadly, like an old home. And I always think of it as the person's been kicked out of some old place and maybe they're feeling sad and lonely and, grief is attached to this one. So the idea of the intuition or the challenge of the intuition is you have to clean out old stories and old trauma. You have to acknowledge old pain and then truly release it. And that's something we spend probably a good portion of our lifetime doing. And I think people get really frustrated. My clients are so funny because, we'll work through a piece of trauma and another one comes up. And some people get really mad, like, didn't we already clean this out? I'm like, well, I mean, sure. I mean, sometimes you have to engage the same story at different levels, right? But every time you engage it, it's necessary to engage it. And it's almost like we think, gosh, why can't I just be done with being a human? You want to be done being a human? Well, you will be done being with a human. Eventually you'll jump off the planet, right? So you will be done eventually. But while we're on the planet, Okay. We're always kind of working through different layers of healing. And part of this, the challenge here is, are you willing to admit you have an unresolved pain and to love it, honor it, and release it? And then, of course, turn around, and behind the lady, there's three uh, upturned cups here representing the loss, and behind her are two upright cups saying, if you can complete the challenge, if you can acknowledge a loss, kind of love it, be gentle to it, release it, then you'll be able to see the new blessing coming. But again, we have to care about our own pain. And it's amazing to me how many people have learned. I don't know if they don't care about it, but like, we have learned, this is part of my life. This is part of my, this is pain. I don't get to not have this pain. This is my pain. And we kind of tell ourselves we have to agree with it. And that's where this challenge would show up is, well, at some point, whatever pain we think is chronic and is permanent comes up and says, are you willing to now face the pain and lovingly release it? And if not, then your intuition gets limited. If the challenge comes up for you here, like all the challenges, if you're not willing to face the challenge, you hamper the rest of your journey. And that just means you go back down and you'll engage it again. That's why we get the same like patterns showing up with us over and over again, because they'll just keep showing up until we solve them. Hi, Crystal. Okay, those are the minor arcana fives. Again, feel free to chime in if you have a question. We've got two major arcana fives as well. We've got the Hierophant, which looks like, I don't know if she looks like it in this, but in the Rider Waite, it looks like the Hierophant is like the Pope, right? It looks like a religious leader. So people often associate it with the church. But in my understanding of when the Rider Waite was created, the church really was sort of the center of public life. So I think it's kind of a neat way to think of it, is that the emperor represents private life, where you establish your own sanctuary and place of balance, and you create your nice foundation on which to build. The Hierophant represents your move into public life. And again, that's a 5. It's a challenge point, because you are now leaving your private sphere and moving into the public sphere, where things get harder, right? Which is why you need that foundation in the first place. Things get harder in the public sphere, because you have lots of people, lots of ideas. You are becoming visible. You're a little nervous. You have to learn how to say what you want to say. You have to, like, this is where you kind of step into the world, right? And so the Hierophant, the job of the Hierophant, I think, is to help bring us into the marketplace. The job of the Hierophant is to kind of help us navigate in bringing our gifts into the world, to find what our voice is, where we're going to serve, who we're going to serve, what we're going to offer, that kind of thing. So again, the challenge is, are you ready to step out of your comfy little home and like move into the world? Are you ready to stop like writing it in your closet and like put it in the world so other people can be blessed by this? And the truth is, all of our blessings are here to be translated into the larger sphere. We're all a piece of the universe that has a purpose, and the purpose is to kind of communicate itself to the rest of the universe. So this is a critical moment, right, where you have to decide if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to, and you feel safe enough to do that, which again goes back to whether you completed the work of the 4, whether you feel your foundations are pretty steady, like your intuition, your relationship with intuition is pretty steady, your mind's pretty calm, your passion's pretty clear, and your physical realm, you've learned how to report when you needed it. Like, if you got all that going for you, then you're ready to meet this challenge. And now it's just about taking a deep breath and going forward. So that would be the first 5 in the major arcana. And the second 5 we find is Temperance. Okay. So Temperance, it's kind of, okay. So if you think of the Hierophant, it's like you're kind of a vessel through which your blessing, your calling is translated into the world, where Temperance is where you find the balance point. You again evoke the balance point between your humanity and your divinity, which is represented by this. She's got this angel, and she has her one foot on land and one foot, I want to say how they, in the water, right? So the water represents intuition, the land represents sort of the mind. And so we are not in that place where we're somehow managing the balance between these two energies. So when you walk into the world as the Hierophant, like you're starting out, you bring what you can, it's like you're learning as you go, right? Here you're refining the balance. Now you're kind of in the place in your journey. This is the second part of the major arcana. So there's more subtle lessons happening here. You're now really navigating this relationship in a deeper way between the mind and the intuition. You're getting them to be better aligned, better partners, and really you're able to access your magic in a much cleaner way. So that's the invitation of the five is are you, the challenge is, are you willing to, and usually we tend to be more committed to one thing or another. Like we're either very committed to our spiritual life or we're very committed to our physical life. And so we tend to be better at one thing than another. Here we have to say we have to fully embrace all of who we are. So if you're someone who's very like spiritual, and you kind of think, oh, well, physical things aren't that important. It's not, and you've sort of lived your life kind of denigrating physical things. You need to be challenged. Like your body is your vehicle on the planet, and it is a part of you, and it deserves to be loved and supported. And if you're not willing to engage the body in a way that's loving and honoring, then you're also not engaging any bodies around you. Like you're almost denying the humanity of yourself and others. So your gift is not, your magic's not fully surfacing. If on the other hand, you've always spent time focusing on the body, which I mean, pretty much, I mean, I guess focusing on the body, like really wanting to be take care of your money or being focused on surviving or prestige, whatever that might look to you, then you're going to feel like you're kind of churning it out. You're following the rules, but you're not like letting in your own spiritual genius. Then again, you're showing up and you're doing something, but it's not quite in flow the way it could be. So when this card shows up, it invites us to look at the balance to see where we may be shortchanging ourselves and sort of encourage a deepening of the partnership. So, Joey, you said reverse Hierophant. You're asking what it would be reversed? I mean, there's lots of things that could be reversed. So I read reversals. I read the cards always in connection to what I've asked it, what question I've asked, and also how it's connecting to the other card. So it's almost like the cards are like one word, and I'm putting the words together in a sentence, right? So if I ask a question like, "What's a challenge we are facing?" Let's say, and I get reversed Hierophant, I might say reverse Hierophant. I might say, well, we're scared to move into the world. We're not sure how to move into the world. We're not confident. There's something blocking us where the mind is worried about something. We have maybe an old wound we haven't solved. Maybe we haven't completed our four step, which is the Emperor. So we haven't fully kind of created a private space that we feel safe and loved. We're not strong. We don't feel very strong yet. So we are not ready to move into the world. Another question you could ask a reversal would be, what's a blessing we're being offered, let's say? And that could be, the reversal could be an internalization of the Hierophant, which is to say, I have my relationship with the Hierophant is really inside me now. Like I can feel very clearly when I'm called. I can see the path in front of me. I can put structures together in a way that really makes sense to me. Like the Hierophant now belongs to me. It's mine. Or I've completed the Hierophant, which means you'd move on to if you're looking at the sequential major arcana, you'd move on to the Lovers, which is what we're going to do in a second. So I think reversals, if you're going to read reversals, you need to know how you're reading them and why you will read them differently. So if I ask a positive question, the reversal has to mean something positive because I asked it something positive. The cards have to do what I say they have to do. Okay. And I think that's how I relate to the cards. They're my tools. They respond to me. Right. And I think that's something that sometimes people get they have different opinions or different perspectives on that because people are scared of their cards almost like, oh no, I got the devil. What does that mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's your cards. Like they serve you. I feel that way. I don't use the cards to divine what's going to happen to me. Like I feel like I like to support people in the idea that you are the actor and the co-creator with the universe. The cards are giving you help. If they're not giving you help, they should be tossed. Like any other tool that's not giving you help, it should get tossed right out. Okay, good, Joey. I'm glad that helped. Good. Okay, so now the 6. Oh, hi, Phoenix Rose. I'm glad to see you here. Six. So six, I connect to integration and harmony. It's about, and what's funny is if you look at the four and six, they're almost the same energy, right? Like the four is about balance and nice foundations. The six is about kind of finding your integration and harmony. So you have the four and the six on either side of the challenge, which is the five, right? So it's almost like I was thinking about gymnastics and how, the four is like you get a good, someone's going to, like, what are the uneven bars? Let's say you're going to go on the uneven bars. You're going to do some kind of event like that, and you run and you jump, right? And so learning that run and jump is sort of the four. You get really good at that kickoff, right? And then you do all the wild things you're going to do in the five. That's where you're spinning. You're kind of, you meet the challenge and you're spinning, you're flipping, and then the six is the dismount where you land and you get your feet back on the ground and you stabilize, right? So all of the challenges in the middle where you're flipping and you're learning, but if you don't have the beginning set where you get a good run and a good jump off, and you don't have the dismount set, then you land on your bum. So this is where the four and the six give you a chance to stabilize before and to stabilize after, right? Necro Nikki says the tower is my favorite. I'm afraid it's scary. Well, I mean, it does look scary, right? But I think that if you think that things are happening to you, which a lot of people, that I think a lot of people feel that way. They don't kind of feel like they're kind of the actor in their life. They're responding to things. They're trying to respond. And that actually is sort of a popular linear understanding of things, because linear people do pretty much respond to what they're given. And that's not a negative thing. That's just an orientation. So my husband will, if you just give him a book of rules, he will follow the rules. Okay. He'll just do it. If you give him a set of things you want him doing, you'll give him rules. He's happy as a clam. He'll follow the rules. So in his mind, then, like, I mean, I don't mean to, it's not quite this explicit, but like whoever wrote the book is the one who gets to set the structure. His job is to function inside the structure. So in that case, the authority is outside yourself. That's not perfectly true, but that's sort of the general idea. And if the authority is outside yourself, the power is outside of yourself. Other forces are making decisions on your behalf. So I am not oriented to linear thinking. So that doesn't work for me. In fact, if you give me a structure, even if I might try to follow it for a while, but I'll end up blowing it up, or I'll end up leaving it because it's too small. It's just too limiting. And I kind of can't agree all the way that someone else can tell me what to do. So the same thing with the tarot. So when I look at the tarot, I don't think it's telling me what to do. I think I'm telling it what to do. And I'm telling it to send messages that are supportive, that give me good action steps or good insight or good encouragement for the next steps I will take in my life. So yes, I think the tarot definitely has places that look kind of scary and creepy. And I think if you are fearful of the tower, for example, things falling apart, there may actually be an experience in your life where things did fall apart. And maybe there's a bit of trauma to be cleared from that. Or, so, maybe your mind needs support in sort of releasing that old thing. That's fine. We all have that stuff to do. But I think that if you're in agreement with being afraid of the tarot, then you may be someone who's more of a linear thinker, and it's okay with you. It's okay with you. My clients are usually people that they're not okay with it. So that's why I do what I do. So anyway, the six, integration, harmony. Now we're coming out of the challenge. We're finding new integration, right? And we've got the minor arcana first. We'll pull these guys out. Six of Cups, which, I mean, this is lovely. But what I love about the Rider-Waite is this two children sharing the cups of flowers. And I connect the Six of Cups to that very deep open-heartedness that comes from like the childlike innocence. I like the idea of this standing in for children, because children are able to evoke. They come to the world with their eyes open for magic and their hearts open for magic. So after that, if you think of the Five of Cups, that sort of recognition of loss and feeling the pain and sort of acknowledging it and releasing it, which is where the Five of Cups was. Now we come into this new place of sort of idyllic love and balance. And this is the blessing you get on the other side of the challenge, right? And I also like to say that innocence is not the same thing as naivete. Naivete means we believe everything's going to be perfect because we have no other experiences yet. Innocence is when we have had bad things happen, Um, but we have released them and healed them, and now we're coming to the world fresh, ready for new magic. We're making a choice to look at the world through eyes that are open and ready, as opposed to letting the past circumstances color what we expect today. So again, you can see the connection, right? The 5 of cups is the thing that's blocking you from innocence, right? Because you're carrying some kind of pain point and it is slowing you down. You're still in pain from something. So you can't pretend you're not in pain when you're in pain. But once you clear that, now that old story is released and now you're able to come to the world with fresh innocence. So you're getting your intuition's getting back in flow, back in that place of balance, right? Um what did I do with the other one? Oh, the 6 of, okay. 6 of swords. Hi, Madam Amy and oh, Angela. You said you use a nature tarot deck. Yeah. I mean, whatever tools work for you. I actually like the Rider Waite just because I learned it, but also because I kind of like taking the devil and turning it into something fantastic. I like to be a little ornery. So I like the challenge of the tower and saying, yeah, how is this fun? How can we make this into our friend? But I think any tools that work for you that match what you're trying to do are the right tools for you. So 6 of swords. Swords is the mind again. 6 is integration. So in this image, this feels like probably the only 6 that feels a little bit sad. I think it's a little bit sad, but it's still hopeful, right? There's this image of this guy ferrying this mother and child across a body of water. Is there a child? Oh, they don't have a child in this one, just a woman by herself. But um, ferrying her across this body of water. Water is often connected to intuition. So the mind is sort of leaving behind some old structure that was not harmonious and moving into the next, moving across the waters into a new. So the 5 of swords was the challenge is, can the mind like not engage other people's expectations or ideas, or not get hooked into other people's drama. Well, if you can avoid that, then you can focus on letting go of any old structure that's not working, and going across the water, and the mind will create a new place of harmony. Now, in this card, it's like we're in the middle of the transition. The mind sort of surrendered, like, okay, we're going to leave. And that may be where the integration really is the mind saying, all right, I agree. I'm going to leave behind the old thing. It wasn't working. I can see that now. I'm willing to kind of go into the water and find a new place where I will build a new structure that's more harmonious, if that makes sense. So, let's see. Elizabeth said, 6 of Cups. It's been like my theme song for the last several months. 6 of Cups is amazing. So I'm glad that's been your theme song. It's a good theme song to have. And Madam Amy, you said you pulled this card yesterday, the six of Swords. So your mind may be like in a place of surrender and release, like, yep, let's move on. Let's find the new place where we're going to build a new structure. I think it's great. We just want to be mindful in this one. Like the mind is surrendered and is in harmony, but in my experience, my mind needs a lot of support and love during the transition of the 6 of Swords. Like lots of encouragement, like saying, yes, I know you're kind of unbalanced right now, but we're going to figure it out. You're doing so great. Like it needs lots of encouragement because it's really doing something challenging, this is really a faith step for the mind because it's leaving behind the familiar to move into something it doesn't yet see. And it's agreeing. That means the mind's agreeing to take a faith step with you. So I think it needs lots of praise and support in that time. And Madam Amy says it came with 2 of Cups too. Oh, nice. Yes. Yeah. And the 2 of Cups, I think, is about that inner partnering, right? So I think so you want that 2 of Cups can apply here, like really offering love and support and acknowledgement that the mind's doing something really hard. And it's just so easy for the mind is just used to, because it's in the linear world. And it's also masculine energy, which in our world is not typically supported the way it needs to be. So the mind is used to kind of being like a loner and like no one ever acknowledges it. It's kind of hard on itself. It's kind of judgy. Like it just feels like it's not very likable. Like the mind, you have to almost convince the mind that it is lovable. It's a part of you and you almost have to win it over into even being loved. So I say the more love and praise you can heap on your mind, the better. Like constant love, because it's doing the hardest work of all the suits. Like there's the intuition, there's passion, there's physical and mind are kind of close together, but the mind's doing the hardest work. The biggest challenge happens for the mind, so it needs lots of support. That's my sermon today about the mind. 6 of Wands. right? So the wands is about passion and confidence, and this image, I guess there are people in this image. Does he have a wreath? Yes, or she has a wreath. I think all the characters in the modern witch are feminine or female. But anyway, the garland represents victory. So the 5 of wands is the people sparring, and they're working really hard, and they're surfacing their skills, and now someone's victorious and the people go, yay, yay. So it's being celebrated and loved and kind of acknowledged by your community for all this, for what you've done. For maybe you're exhausted, maybe you're maybe you're a little sweaty, maybe you're even a little bit injured from what you just did, but yay you. And so there's this idea. And the 4 of wands also has that sort of communal feel. So there is something about like being in flow and being in passion and like letting yourself be stabilized and integrated in your community. Don't get lost. And even the 5 of wands is a communal event, right? I think wands especially invites us into communal experiences. And I think that's one reason why it can be challenging, because it is like wands is about being in passion and kind of uncensored flow, and we're so used to censoring ourselves with other people, where we're taught to do that. So it's like you need to find the place where you can be uncensored in your flow, not only uncensored but actually celebrated. So like, and when those people celebrate you, you let yourself be supported. You don't ignore them. I've said it so many times. The mind has a propensity, and it makes sense why it would, but it has a propensity to really over focus on wherever we're criticized and totally ignore anyone who's giving us praise or support. And it's because the mind, especially the mind, the survival, when it's in survival mode, it's really only watching for bear, right? It's like you're watching for bear. So if someone criticizes you, that might be bear, that may be a threat. But the mind hasn't learned. You have to train the mind to stop looking for bear and to notice the trees and the flowers and the like. There's so much beauty that the mind's missing when it's always focused on looking for bear. We have to help the mind like shift into saying, wow, not only am I in flow, but all these people are like excited about it. And we want to feel like integrated into the world and in harmony with the world for that reason. Um, Madam Amy, yes. Good. Yes. And the last one, 6 of Pentacles. So this image, and I think here, well, this is this is different than Rider-Waite. I may like this one. This may be one that I like a little bit better than Rider-Waite, just because of the way I read it. 6 is about harmony and balance. Pentacles is the physical world. It's about physical money as well as physical vitality. And the Rider-Waite, it's like a rich man giving alms to some poor people. And so I think instinctively it looks unbalanced, right? There's a rich guy, there's poor people. Like it's an unbalanced. It's unbalanced. But 6 is about harmony and integration. So what I always say is I think it depicts like the flow of energy where our giving and receiving are matching each other. We are just as good at giving as we are at receiving. And that is kind of, and you can see how that connects to the 5 of Pentacles, right? The 5 of Pentacles is the challenge of the Pentacles is you're struggling through the snow. Are you going to see the church? Are you going to see the church? Are you going to notice that help is being offered to you? And then if you match that, then you have to get good at receiving the help, right? Now you have to, and that's actually something you have to work on. That is actually a skill. Receiving is a skill you have to develop. And some people are better at receiving. You're usually better at giving or receiving. You're better at one. Most people I know are better at giving than they are at receiving, and I'm included in that. So I think that, so it's being offered, like the table is set, are you going to sit down and eat? Are you going to just look at the table and think, oh, it's nice that someone prepared the food for me? Well, you got to sit down and eat too. And not only that, you have to like be happy that you're receiving it. That's a challenge for me is that I'm working on right now is like my husband's very supportive of me. He's very supportive of me. But like when he does things for me, I feel guilty that he's doing them for me. So that means I'm not fully receiving the benefit of the gift, right? So I have to kind of go, no, he's enjoying giving it to me. I'm enjoying it. It's all good. Everything is good. And no one's getting harmed. No one's getting fussy. Everyone's enjoying this exchange. But that's something I have to train my mind to do, right? I have to train my mind to kind of step back from feeling guilty or embarrassed or feeling like I should do it myself and say, oh, it's so lovely to be served. It's funny because I had a client the other day who was talking about something in some meditation she had. She felt like she wanted to go buy a princess castle, something like that. And I said, maybe you want to be a princess. And she said, She said, what do you mean? I said, well, princesses are served and loved just because of who they are. They don't have to earn it. They're just completely valued in their beingness, not in their doingness. And I thought, yeah. And I remember a few years ago that came up for me as my word for my blessing word for some meditation was princess. I'm like, yes, you need to be able to be a princess, which is you're valued. People love, or they adore you and they want to serve you just because they love you. And then, of course, that's an archetype. So the other piece is you're also giving. And then you feel more inspired to give. And then you get better at receiving. So this becomes like a naturally expansive energy cycle. It's not just sustainable, it's naturally expansive. So that's Six of Pentacles. Now, our two major arcana, sixes. I'm going to hold them together because they're the same, right? You can see they're the Lovers and the Devil, and they actually mirror each other. You see that in the Lovers, and this is Lovers. There's an angel in the middle, and the Devil. There's the Devil in the middle, and the two people. Excuse me. The couple is the same, right? So in this one, it's like Adam and Eve. Oh my goodness, my nose is itching. Adam and Eve, right? So we'll start with the Lovers. So Adam and Eve are the couple. We often think of Lovers as being about partnering, and I guess it can be. But again, I'm looking at the sixth purpose of it, which is integration and harmony. And the image is about, it's about living in integrity and harmony and drawing to yourself partners that match that. Right. So it's not just about romantic partners or about being married or any of those things. It's about like kind of really settling into your own truth of who you are. And the truth of who you are sort of shines out into the world, and it draws to you people who are also who match that resonance. Right. So if you think about the Hierophant's the moment where the challenge point where you go from the private world into the public world. Now you're in the public world, and now you have to learn how to communicate, figure out who you really are in the public forum. That's a challenge. Like you might try this. You might find yourself trying out different ideas, different strategies, but you're gonna land on what matches you. Right? You're going to land on what you want to charge, what you want to call it, how you're going to display it. And then you find your place of harmony, and then you draw to yourself the people that match that. So that's the gift of this balance point. So you've got like the 4, which is the Emperor, the private balance point. This is where you find your balance point in the public world. And then let yourself draw to yourself the people who match that. Okay. And the Devil, as I said, it's really a parallel. It parallels the Lovers. It's the sixth card, the second sixth card of the major arcana. It's the card in the second half of the major arcana, right? And the second half of the major arcana, as I said, are like deeper spiritual lessons. So the Devil is about breaking free of something you didn't even know you were trapped in. So the Lovers is kind of like, the Lovers is, well, I'm in this world. I'm figuring out who I am. I'm figuring out what my brand is, how to communicate it, what I'm going to charge for it, who my clients are. Actually, you don't even have to figure out who your clients are, because your clients will recognize your resonance and come. I don't have you have that process where you come up with your ideal client or who do you want to. I did that. It didn't work for me. I just got to be my ideal. Just become the ideal me, and the right clients find me, right? So that's this. The Devil is like, we're going even deeper in that, because in the Lovers card, you can sort of identify what you're going for. You can kind of it's more like the first half of the major arcana is more like, how are we orienting and arranging our lives in the world? The second half is now we're doing the internal work. It's almost entirely internal. So here it's like, what structure is in me that I didn't even know could be moved? Until suddenly I go, wait a minute, that thing right there, I've had it my whole life, that doesn't belong to me, and I'm sick of it. And that's the energy of the Devil. So we're going to clean out the things that were kind of hidden from you, or felt like they were chronic, like I talked about before with the 5 of Cups, things that you've had for a long time, and you haven't really even considered being free of it. But suddenly there's this sort of movement inside of you. It's like I talk about the Devil as being the kind of the beginning of this, the invitation to feel the geyser of energy that says, yes, it is time for this to go. And are you willing to kind of let that surface all the way and clean out the thing and actually break you free? Because I don't think in this one you can't really tell that they're in a cave. In the Rider-Waite, there's a cave, and the idea is they're actually trapped underground, and the only way out is to blow up the cave. And so there is this sort of powerful energy being invited where you're kind of um, yeah, channeling this energy. And I think, wait a minute, hold on, let me make sure, because the five is temperance, right? Temperance, right? Yeah. So temperance leads to the devil, right? So temperance is this: you are accessing your magic. You're finding the balance between these two partners. You're really getting them to work together. And then what do you do with that partnership? You break free of something that you didn't even know you were trapped in, or you didn't even know that freedom was a possibility. This is magic. The thing about temperance, I didn't say this, but I love this comment about temperance, is that she's pouring water from one cup to another, but the water is flowing up from the bottom cup to the top cup, which means she's defying the laws of gravity. And temperance tells us that when we are able to channel and bring these two parts of ourselves together, we can rewrite the laws of nature if it serves us, right? If our magic requires it, then nature will adapt to us. And that's we're channeling real power, and the devil, then we use that power to get free of something that was in the way. So I like when they're connected like that. I like when you can see the flow from one to the other, and you can see that there is, because the reason I like that is because it creates a sequential understanding that my mind really likes. My mind likes structures. So you can see it's with the numerology, my mind has used it to create a structure so that when I see a 6, I go, oh, well, that's something to do with, and my mind can remember that. And it gives another level to my understanding. So anyway, so yeah, that was 4, 5, and 6. I don't see any other questions. If there are any, you can ask me. And if you're watching this in the replay, you can always put your questions below or your observations, and I can get back to them later. But for now, I guess I'm done for this live stream, and I will see you all next time. Bye.